Today we'll talk about the various factors you should consider when you're choosing between the simple past or the present perfect. We're going to begin by reviewing the two forms for these verb tenses, but if you would like to just skip this section and go straight into usage and looking at how we use these verb tenses differently, please look at the description box below and you will find the timestamps for that. Many of you are probably familiar, but to form the simple past with a regular verb, we just simply add an ed, like walk will become walked. With an irregular verb like think, it becomes a completely different word, thought. Now, to form the present perfect, we'll have the auxiliary verb have or has, depending on if your subject is singular or plural, and then past participle. For example, he has lived here for a long time. They have eaten at this restaurant before. So it's always have or has plus the third verb. Before we move on to using these two verb tenses, I want to make sure that we are very comfortable with just the forms. So let's just take a few minutes to fill out this chart. Please pause this video for more time. Okay, let's review the answers together. The first one, drink. The simple past is drank and then drunk. The second one, swim, is very similar. It's swam with an A and swum with a U. For sit, it is sat. And for past participle, it is also sat. For the verb drive, it becomes drove and then driven. And then for run, it is ran and then back to run. Please excuse my crazy, insanely ugly writing. I think it's very important for us to be very familiar with past participles of verbs because for these verbs, especially like drink, swim, drive, I guess most of these, 4 out of 5, I hear a lot of people misuse them when they're trying to use present perfect. For example, people would say things like, I should have drank more water, when it should be, I should have drunk more water. Or she has swam for 15 years, when it should be, in fact, she has swum for 15 years. Or we should have driven together, right? Instead of we should have drove together. I have run many marathons, not I have ran many marathons. So a lot of people opt for the simple past when they're using the present perfect form. But right now, we just reviewed that if you want to use present perfect, you have to use the auxiliary verbs have or has, and then the past participle. That is a formula, and we're not going to deviate from that formula, even though we hear people misuse it all the time. Now that we're familiar with forms, let's talk about the difference in usage between these two verb tenses. Look at these two sentences. I saw the movie twice, and I've seen the movie twice. Both of these are actually correct, but depending on what situation you're in, you will have to choose accordingly. And we'll talk about these situations right now. One factor you need to consider when you're choosing between these two verb tenses is if you are mentioning a time. So if you are mentioning time, you're going to use the simple past tense, but if there's no mention of time, or when the time isn't important, you will use present perfect. Here are some examples of using simple past because there's the mention of time. Sentence A says, I went to Spain last year with my family. When did you go? Last year. B says, we watched that movie in the theater when it first came out. When did you watch it? When it first came out. Our family moved around a lot. When? During my childhood. So when we say mention of time, it doesn't have to be specific, like last January 3rd at 3 p.m. It can just be any reference to a time period, then you're going to use simple past. Here are some examples of using present perfect, and there will be no mention of time. Sentence A says, I've been to Taiwan, but never to Japan. And when this happened is not really relevant. B says, I've seen her before. Again, I don't know when or where, but I have seen her before. And the last one is in the form of a question. Have you met her family? This is present perfect, have met, but again, it's in the form of a question. And here, I'm not asking, did you meet her family? I'm asking, have you met her family? Because when you met them isn't important. I just want to know, if you have met them, right? So again, time is not important here and it's not mentioned at all, so I'm going to use present perfect. Let's pretend that somebody asked you a question using the present perfect tense. For example, here it says, have you been to Japan? You can answer A or B and they're both correct. A says, yes, I went there 2 years ago. You can say went simple past because you mentioned a time. B says, yes, I've been there a few times. Here you would use present perfect because you do not mention when you went there. Now let's talk about the second difference between these two verb tenses. For a repeated action that is not going to happen again, we're going to use the simple past. For a repeated action that may happen again in the future, we're going to use the present perfect. Let's take a look at this example. As I just mentioned, we use simple past for an action or a repeated action that is not going to happen again. So let's imagine that you took an English class last semester. In this situation, you can say, I took 7 exams in my English class. Not, I have taken 7 exams, but I took 7 exams in my English class, because your English class is over. It's finished. You took it last semester. Therefore, you are not going to take an exam in that class anymore. Then you're going to use simple past instead of present perfect. On the other hand, we use present perfect for a repeated action that may happen again or is likely going to happen again. In this scenario, you are currently, this semester, enrolled in a math class. Then you can say the sentence, I have taken 4 exams so far. Because you are still enrolled in the class this semester, and there's a very good chance you're going to have more exams for the remainder of the semester. So in this case, you should not use simple past, and you would say, I have taken, or I've taken, we've had 4 exams so far. Let's take a quick minute to just do 2 of these practice questions. Please pause this video for more time. The first one says, I tried sushi twice and I really didn't like it. Here you will likely use simple past because you really didn't like it. If you really didn't like it, you're probably not going to do it again, right? So you will probably use simple past here. The second one says, my family has visited Mexico 4 times. We can't wait to go back. If you can't wait to go back, it's probably going to happen again. You're probably going to go back, so we will use present perfect here. Difference number 3 between these two verb tenses is probably the most commonly known difference. So we use simple past for a finished action. It began in the past, but it also ended in the past. It really has no connection to now. For present perfect, it is for an unfinished or ongoing action. It began in the past, it is continued, and it has a connection to now. This is probably the most, like I said, commonly known one and the most popular difference between these two verb tenses. For example, when I was a child, I liked camping. I don't like to go anymore because it's too messy. So here we would use simple past because it's just no longer true. On the other hand, I could say I have loved camping since I was a child, and use present perfect because it is still true now. Let's take a minute to answer these two questions, and please pause this video for more time. Number 1, Mary and I were friends for 20 years, but we lost touch when she moved away. So we're no longer friends, so I'm going to choose were, simple past. Number 2, my parents have lived in their home for over 30 years. I don't think they will ever sell it. So they still live there, therefore I'm going to choose present perfect. The last difference we'll talk about between these two verb tenses is the possibility or impossibility of an event. We are going to use simple past when there is no chance for something to occur, or we're going to use present perfect when there is a chance or when there is a possibility for some sort of action to occur. And this sounds really vague and, what the heck, but I will explain further. So we would use the simple past when there is no chance for a particular action to occur. In other words, or in very simple terms, let's just use the word something is impossible. For example, right now it's 5 p.m. It is late afternoon or early evening. I can say, did you eat breakfast this morning? And not, have you eaten breakfast this morning? Because it's impossible for you to eat breakfast today now because it is 5 p.m. Therefore, you cannot say, have you eaten breakfast? You have to say, did you eat breakfast? If it's impossible for you to eat breakfast anymore. On the other hand, we will use present perfect when there is a chance for the action to occur or something is possible. So current time is 8 a.m. Then I can ask you, have you had breakfast? Because you can still eat breakfast. It's only 8 a.m. You have a couple of hours until I could no longer use the present perfect, right? So if it's still possible for you to eat breakfast, you can use or you should use present perfect instead of simple past. Again, let's take a minute or two and pause this video and answer these two questions. Number 1, it's only noon and I have gotten 30 emails. Today's going to be a long day. So I'm going to use present perfect here because your day is not over and it's very possible that you're going to get more emails. Number 2, last week so many people applied for a job at our company. Last week is a mention of time, so definitely we're going to use simple past, but also people cannot apply for a job at our company last week anymore, so I'm going to use simple past. I want to finish off today's lesson with a very short quiz on everything we went over today. Please do pause this video for more time. Number 1, I ate an entire pizza last night. When? Last night. Number 2, you look familiar. Have we met? I don't know when we met, but I just want to know if we've met. Number 3, the current time now is 11 o'clock at night. And I say, I'm so hungry because I skipped lunch today. Number 4, in college, I had 4 jobs because I had to pay for rent and tuition. Number 5, since high school until now, I have had 8 jobs. Last one, number 6, I have worked at this school for 12 years. I can't imagine leaving, which means you're still there working, so we're going to use present perfect. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, please like this video and consider subscribing to my channel for more lessons. And please do leave a comment below if you have any questions regarding what we went over today, or if you have any suggestions for future lessons. I hope to see you guys next time.